Hello, I'm David Anderson, sitting in today for Mandy McLeod. Welcome to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. Coming up in this week's show, as the Rugby World Cup comes down to the finale and the country collectively holds its breath for a repeat of 1987's result, some of our key agribusiness leaders gathered in the cloud on Auckland's waterfront to discuss and showcase New Zealand's agricultural sector. Landcorp recently paid a $27.5 million dividend to the government. But how good actually is this return to taxpayers? And as councils up and down the country implement their long-term plans and set their rates, how fairly treated are farmers in the wider rural sector by local government? Joining me today is Colin Harvey, Chairman of the Wool Group, Managing Director of Ancare Scientific and founder of innovative New Zealand animal health company, Ancare, and Penny Webster, a former Auckland Federated Farmers President, Member of Parliament, Mayor of the Rodney District and current Auckland Councillor. Welcome to the show. New Zealand is world-renowned for its rugby and agriculture. This week, both heavyweight Kiwi interests collide as the All Blacks head off to Eden Park to clash with the French and try and regain the elusive Webb Ellis Trophy after 24 long years. Meanwhile, down on Auckland's magnificent waterfront, some of the giants of New Zealand agriculture gathered in the cloud to discuss their insights into the development of New Zealand agriculture and some of the groundbreaking innovations in technology, science and farming systems. Colin Harvey, you were one of the guests down on the waterfront. Can you tell me what this is all about?
Oh, it was really an opportunity for us to showcase to overseas visitors and to people from throughout New Zealand the sort of innovations that have occurred in agriculture over the last, few decades, and to really put that base of the importance of our sustainable pasture-based agriculture to what it means to New Zealand.
New Zealand's agribusiness sector is $1 billion a year industry. How does that tie in with a World Rugby tournament?
Well, there's an awful lot of farmers here and an awful lot of other businessmen. So it is an opportunity to demonstrate our unique difference to these people.
Penny, as a former MP and mayor and that sort of thing, do you think these sort of things can be taken as junkets, or is there real merit in
No,
these?
I think it's not a junket. I think some of the business meetings that we've had, I had lunch yesterday with someone from the EU, Italian, looking at New Zealand and Australia, the president of a particular committee, and those sorts of people are down here and they're looking very carefully at New Zealand. And for a lot of them, it's the first time they've come here, but it's the first time they've focused on New Zealand as an agricultural country. They all know we're there, right, but it's just focusing and it brings the right people down, so it's quite important.
So you say it brings the right people down, but how do we know we're bringing the right people down?
Well, I think we are, because we're having, as the debate yesterday would have shown down at the Cloud, a lot of the promotional activities that are going on. Certainly in my area of North Auckland, people, the vineyards, the wineries, not so much the accommodation, but people are noticing foreign visitors in that area, and so I think that's really quite good.
Colin, how does New Zealand agri-business, or New Zealand Inc. leverage the Rugby World Cup as it's happening now to our advantage, as we've been talked about all through the tournament and prior to it?
It starts from the media presence. Our media presence around the world at present for every one of these games is phenomenal. It's going to be really interesting to see the figures for the final, but it's gigantic. And so that puts that top of mind for New Zealand, and therefore when that occurs, it's a good opportunity to start pushing our barrow in other areas. And of course, agribusiness is something that we're very good at. We're probably not so good at actually exporting that technology, and in fact that's an area that's getting a lot of attention at present, how we can do that better. But it is an opportunity for us to take that pasture-based technology to the world. At present, there's an enormous pressure around the world on grain prices. The price of corn is the highest ever, and there are people saying it could double in the next 12 months. Most livestock agriculture in the world is corn-based. We're pasture-based, yep. So we have a lower cost base, and people want that know-how. They want to be able to do it smarter and do it cheaper, and we have the know-how to do that.
So we do have the know-how. Look, in areas like Fonterra, that's the undisputed sort of giant of world dairy export. What other areas does New Zealand lead in the agribusiness sector, or the world?
Well, we really start with our grass breeding. programs with people like Pine Gold Guinness Wrightsons, where the breeding programs that them and AgResearch have together have produced some of the most wonderful grass cultivars without any genetic engineering, by the way, that the world has seen. And we lead in that grasslands breeding technology, but then that's linked to fertilisers, to electric fences to manage them, to livestock management and genetics with LIC. So we have a whole parcel of product, particularly in dairying, but also in sheep and also in deer. So those technologies are all grouped together, and really the challenge is to take them to the world.
Yeah. Penny, as an ex-farmer yourself and someone who's been close to the rural sector all your life, New Zealand has led in areas like frozen meat exports, the development of the electric fence. Where do you think, or do you sort of see our innovation coming from, our next sort of world-leading innovation?
I think if you look at the dairy industry, and that's the one I know about, we've come a long way even in the time that I've been involved, and I look at what my children are doing down in the South Island now, and things are quite different. I wouldn't like to say where we're going to go to next, because we've come such a long way and in such a quick manner. I look back at my time when it was innovative to have a 50-bale rotary cowshed with a backing gate. Now you've got all the mod cons. You're actually, as you know, they can work out how much feed a cow needs and feed them on the platform if they need to, give them supplements, those sorts of things. Some of those things were very innovative when Malcolm and I were farming, and now they're every day. So I think it's really important that we keep that innovative move going forward, but also I agree with Colin, we've got to be able to sell it to the world. I think we do in dairying, but I don't think we're that good in some of the others.
Another area where we are innovative, or seem to be innovative in agriculture in that sector, but I don't know about home. We have a real problem, I think it's developed, and I don't know if you guys agree or not, this rural-urban divide. And do you see that still there, and how we do bridge that, Colin?
I think it's more big city than rural urban. The country towns are very much part of our agricultural fraternity. You just got to go to a Dannevirke or a smaller town, Waipakarau. They are part of the country, and they're very much one community. But yes, us Aucklanders are a bit separate from agriculture, and I think one of the bridges there we have to build is in the food culture area, in the food manufacturing area, and we need more food manufacturing businesses based in places like Auckland, bringing the goodness of the country and changing and adding value to it.
Penny, wasn't that long ago, that someone, everyone had a grandparent or an uncle or an aunt or came from a farm themselves. That's quite different today. How do we go about introducing, kids today would think that milk comes in a plastic bottle, or, meat comes in a package. How do we go about expanding that education? I think
it's something that we're always dealing with, and I think you're quite right. Auckland is Auckland, but now, of course, 46% of the Rodney area, for example, is rural in Auckland. So it's sort of my job and my colleagues' job, Des Morrison and people like that, to actually educate our colleagues as to the importance of it. And I think Auckland Council particularly has done well. We recognise with setting up the innovation hubs that we are, the Manukau Food Innovation Centre, working with the universities to actually bring everybody together on the same area. I think where we misconnect, I think, is, and I might talk about it later, is some of the policies that we do. We do a lot of lip service about we've got to protect our rural base, we've got to protect our soils. We do a lot of talking about that within council, how somehow we've got to actually walk the talk, to use an old-fashioned expression. And certainly when you look at some of the policies that we come up with, or we allow other people to come up with, we send mixed messages, so we've got to work that through.
Coming up after the break, Landcorp, the state-owned corporate farmer, has turned around its fortunes in the past year. It has upped the dividend it's paying to the government by almost $10 million to $27.5 million. But is this really a good return to taxpayers? And should the government be running corporate farms and competing against the private sector? And local bodies up and down the country are setting rates, regulations and bylaws. How does the rural sector fare? All this when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. Landcorp, the government-owned corporate farmer, has reported a profit of 42 million on a total asset base of almost 1.65 billion. But how good a return is this for taxpayers really? So Colin, wouldn't that $1.7 billion invested in the Landcorp be better spent by government in other areas like schools and education where we're crying out for money to be spent?
It's part of their asset base, and it's a very good asset, and it's continuing to increase. And the return they get is probably not a highly competitive one in today's market, but probably as good as they get from the super fund. And at the same time, Landcorp is leading the way in a lot of innovative technology. You know, they've linked into the Farm IQ that system that's being developed, and are really showing themselves to be our leading farmer. I think Chris Kelly, the managing director of that company, is doing a really great job in demonstrating what a corporate farmer can do. One of the things I often wonder is whether we shouldn't be letting him go further and farm internationally. You know, if he's so successful here, why not take it to the world?
Penny, as a ex-ACT MP and maybe and someone who's farmed yourself, what do you think about a corporate government farmer competing against private sector farmers? I mean, the government doesn't own printing businesses anymore. It doesn't own commercial radio stations. Is there a sense for it being running a corporate farm?
I'm probably a bit torn on this one, David, because over my years, obviously, I also supported sharemilking. And I think, to go back to some of the questions you were asking us before, the sharemilking system is vital to New Zealand, and I see that, unfortunately, disappearing. And I see corporate farms, such as Landcorp, actually using the sharemilking system and being probably a lot better at it than some of the private farmers are. I think there's a responsibility, and I'm talking dairy farming here, with the dairy farming industry, to continue that ability for ordinary people to go into the sharemilking system and build up to buy their own farms. Otherwise, we're going to be foreign owned by other people. So if Landcorp's going to sort of hold it back and create those opportunities, I think it's a good thing, which probably goes against some of my other philosophy. But when it comes to farming and sharemilking and bringing New Zealand young people through the system, I get a bit passionate.
But that's the point, isn't it, Colin? I mean, when Landcorp set up, or the Lands and Survey, you know, it did bring young farmers on and that sort of thing through the Lands and Survey ballots and that sort of thing. And you know, with it setting up as an SOE in the 80s, that raising data all changed. So doesn't that make the point of Landcorp different now?
They are leading the way, but in a slightly different way. It's more in technology, and it's more in new ways of finding ways of managing people and managing farms. That's really where the development of know-how is today, rather than bringing land in. They have done some land development, as we know, in forestry around Rotorua, and that's been very successful. But I think their purpose is now much broader than what we saw it in the old days, which was, you know, whacking down a whole lot of forest and giving away a ballot farm to a returned serviceman.
You made an interesting point before about maybe expanding its remit to buy overseas land. Now we see like Fonterra is doing that, and some individual farmers are doing that. But on the converse side of things, there's a real anathema in New Zealand about foreigners owning farmland. I mean, how do you feel about that insofar as New Zealanders going over and owning farmland overseas, but foreigners coming here and owning land in New Zealand? I mean, Colin, your thoughts on that?
I do a lot of work in value add and agriculture, and in my view, we should welcome people coming and investing in New Zealand. You know, our land, they're not coming here to buy our land because it's cheap. You know, I mean, you can buy good dairy land in many places in the world much cheaper than you can in New Zealand. They're coming here because of the infrastructure we have to support that land. And they have veterinary surgeons, the whole of our dairy system, the whole thing that supports the high quality milk powder we make is our farming system. And that's what they're coming to buy into. And that's a larger part of it and part of our know-how, and you can't take that away. So I see that investment as very positive. In the same way, though, we should be, and we have farming companies that are farming around the world now, and that's been great. And the question is, should we be doing even more of that? And Fonterra has shown the way into China, which is really a tough nut compared to, say, South America, which is much simpler. But they've shown their way in doing that, and there may be more opportunities. And I think this is an area, I know Trade and Enterprise have a project underway right now at looking at this and how we could do that better.
A controversial area, and Penny, probably potentially another controversial area, is farmers and their love affair or non-love affair with councils and how they interact with that. There's long been an argument that farmers are seen as cash cows by council, by local body government. Your opinion on that, and especially coming from your background?
Well, I used to be the lead agency to go to the Auckland Council's various ones and bang on about rates and how farmers were being mistreated. So it's quite interesting being on the other side of that debate now. Obviously, I can only speak for the Auckland Council. The new Auckland Council is certainly looking at rewriting all our policies as far as the long-term plan is concerned, and we will be doing that. And we are doing that, and I think farmers should be very pleased. We've set up a rural panel which represents federated farmers and various user groups within the Auckland area, wider Auckland area, and we're listening to them because, as I said before, there is a need to actually make sure that people stay and farms stay farming in the Auckland area particularly. I think from a council point of view, people sort of look at roads and rubbish, and unfortunately even Rodney Hyde's had to admit now that councils do actually do a few things a little bit bigger than that. So there's all sorts of things that farmers really do get from councils that they don't even probably think about, even to the point of A-grading restaurants and it's not just about libraries, but all the sort of health and safety things they have to do with supermarkets and all these things that farmers actually do go into town and use at times. So it's a juggling act, and I think sometimes farmers think that we've sold out, but certainly it's top of mind when we're making policies in the Auckland Council.
And you particularly in this new Auckland Council, it must be a difficult balancing act for you. I think you're one of two rural-based councillors on a council of 20.
Yes.
So how is the rural voice advocated there? I mean, it's a numbers game, surely, and you're going to miss out.
Well, to a certain extent, yes. I mean, it's an education of educating the other councillors just what rural is, what their issues are, trying not to lump the whole of the Auckland rural together because, of course, in my area of Rodney, there's parts of Rodney that are very rural, there's parts of Rodney that are urban, as you would know. South Auckland has got a total different rural space to it. So it's juggling those to come up with some common principles that are very important.
Colin, in the wider New Zealand sector with local government interaction with the rural agribusiness sector, how do you think that goes, or how that works? I mean, there seems to be quite a controversial issues there regularly.
Yeah, well, the environmental issue has been probably leading the way in that. Yeah, it's sort of an issue, and rightfully so, because we have had some pretty bad examples. Mind you, as we found lately, that councils can contribute to those too. But it is an issue, and I think combination between Dairy NZ, Fonterra and councils, I think we've made an enormous amount of progress in the last 5 years. I would say now, the environmental issues are one or two farmers that aren't playing the game. Generally speaking, most of the surveys done now are showing that their compliance by dairy farmers in particular is very good. And sheep farmers, have a very good record anyway. So I believe that's important because it's also part of our product integrity. We have to be able to show when we sell products to the world that we are doing these things right, and we need to have those systems in place that prove that to the world, and I think we're close to closing that gap.
In saying that, I mean, there seems to be some complaints or made that particularly Fonterra or maybe councils aren't hard enough on those transgressors. Do you think those people who are transgressing should be punished more firmly?
Yes, I mean, I think they should. I mean, I picked up a paper at work the other day that talked about farmers putting effluent straight into streams. Well, they don't anymore. And, you know, the reality is that they don't. But if anyone was caught, I mean, I do think that they should go for a skate, because as Colin said, they upset it for everybody, because people go to that one example, which is an exception to the majority. And that's sort of the mixed messages that councils send out. You know, if somebody is transgressing, well, yes, jump on them pretty hard.
Yeah, great point. After the break, we ask Penny and Colin, what's got their blood pumping this week? Will it be a rant or will it be a rave? Join us after the break. Welcome back to Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. Time now for our weekly rant and rave. Colin, what do you got?
Well, I've got a rave, really. This week I visited the Food Bowl, which is an initiative MED and Auckland Council was started with Manukau, which is a food pilot plant production area that they've put up in Manukau, and it's just opening, and this is an enormous benefit to the food industry in New Zealand and a real way of adding value to our agricultural products. They've got a suite of 4 production rooms, all doing highly innovative new production techniques. People were around to support manufacturers in using those, and also linkages to the market through foodstuffs. So it allows a person to actually try out something new and take it to the market, which I think is a tremendous bit of innovation. These centres, there's going to be 4 of them through New Zealand, will be strongly linked to RIDIT and to universities. And you know, I think this is a good step on adding to how we take more value into our agricultural products to the world.
Fantastic. And how about you, Penny?
Well, I think I'll rave for 2 minutes about the Rugby World Cup, which I think has been fantastic, and I think Auckland's done particularly well with that. Yes. And congratulations to all our staff that I know have worked very hard with that. Can I then go for a rant? The mixed messages I was talking about before, I get very angry sometimes when I'm sitting in council and we're setting policies which are encouraging farmers to stay on the land, and then we come up with planners or, you know, environmental groups who want to just put rules and regulations on farmers, which is actually going to cause them more financial hardship. And it really sort of annoys me sometimes that a lot of these people who probably never been on a farm, never seen a farm balance sheet, don't know anything about it, start coming up with these, what they call ways of keeping farmers under control, yet at the same time they want to be able to go out and see this lovely farming area where, I don't know, do they want, someone suggested to me the other day we should be paying farmers a subsidy again, and I thought we've been through too much pain to go back to those days, and we really have to get it right, and that's all councils up and down the country, and the government's got to take some responsibility too, because if we're going to have a thriving farming community, we all have to take responsibility for what we make farmers go through.
Great stuff. And I think I'll have a rave as well. I want to rave about the Rugby World Cup, how it's carried on in New Zealand as well, and also the innovation around it. The agri on show at the Cloud during the week in Auckland has been fantastic, and it's shown, and that's just a small part of all the businesses that have come through and linked into the Rugby World Cup. And I think New Zealand as a whole can take a real big bow about how well we've done in the Rugby World Cup. And all you need to do is for the All Blacks to do the job for us on Saturday, and it'll be a perfect result. Well, that's it for the latest edition of Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. I'd like to thank my guests, Colin Harvey and Penny Webster. And thanks to you as well for watching. Remember to check out our website, www.country99tv.co.nz. And I'll catch you again next week. Until then, goodbye and go the All Blacks.